Well, hello there. It's your pal Mike Squires. I don't know what episode we're on, if I'm completely honest. 213, maybe? Maybe 213. That's what a terrible way to start an episode to not know where we're at. Who am I? Um, Welcome to the episode already, huh? I'm super stoked. I had the opportunity to talk to my pal Dave Sheldon, who is a vicious guitar player. Um, plays guitar in a Canadian band called Exes for Eyes. Vicious metal band, and former bass player for thrash metal legends Annihilator. And we talk about that a bit. It's cool. There's some great, like, high quality footage of him on tour playing with them. I don't know, probably 10 years ago. I don't know. Um, But it's awesome. It's awesome. We had a great time talking. What else is Dave? Dave's, he'll mix and record and produce your band. He fosters Sully Guitars up there in Canada, I think is what the word he used, foster or surrogate parent, till they find their forever home. So if you're up there in Canada and you want a Sully guitar, go ahead and get a hold of Dave because he's already got it across the border for you. Um, We had a great time. We had a great time talking. What can I say? Listen, uh, I hope that you enjoy this because we had the fun. Now, um, if you are enjoying Couch's podcast or the videos that we make, trying to figure out a great song for Dave to participate in right now, um, please and thank you for supporting us on Patreon. You'll find us at patreon.com/couchriffs. Now, Patreon support is what makes this podcast and really more so the videos happen, although the podcast also costs a bunch of money. For this to only cost me time and not money also is huge. And so I really appreciate your support. And every dime that comes in through Patreon plus more uh, goes right back into making couch riffs keep happening. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I know you could be watching anything, you could be listening to anything, and you could be supporting anything, and you're supporting couch riffs, and so thank you. I appreciate that. I would also like to thank a couple of sponsors. We have a couple of sponsors that help make this all happen. Those sponsors happen to be dun, Variety Coffee Roasters in Brooklyn. Huh? It's what I drink every single morning. Every morning I wake up, I walk my dogs, and I make Variety Coffee. I drink it down, and I'm happier for it. Now, what I want to tell you about Variety is they have a great subscription service. Go to varietycoffeeroasters.com, answer a couple questions. How often do you want it? How do you brew it? And then it'll show up once a week, every other week, once a month, and it's awesome. So get on over there, do that. Follow them on social too. Tell them I sent you. Also, thank you to River City Guitars. River City Guitars is back on Reverb, and they just sold the bass that has been haunting me for months and maybe a year. It was this Hamer viola bass, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I'm not even kidding, and I would be thinking about it. Now I don't have to acquire more credit card debt to have that bass. Someone bought it. So someone out there is going to be very happy. There were only 20 of these things in existence. Anyway, River City Guitars is back on Reverb, and they have a ton of inventory. It's coming up slowly and getting added. So, reach out to them, follow them on social media, and if you've got a collection or a piece, if you've got something used, cool, vintage, all the things, reach out to them. sales.rivercityguitars@gmail. That's right. And let them know what you have. Tell them I sent you, and they're going to treat you right. They're going to treat you not even right. They're going to treat you real, real good. Thank you, River City Guitars. We love you. Now listen, we're going to get into the episode. Thank you for listening, sharing, subscribing, click all the buttons and the bells and the whistles. You guys are great. Don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And just try more than anything, just try to not be an asshole. Try to recognize the difference between not being one and being one also.
Coming in hot and people are still, it's like, oh, what were they talking about before it started? We'll never know.
Well, no one will ever know.
No, nobody will. The unfortunate thing is I have very sensitive ear canals, and I get ear infections easily, which is like a horrible thing as a musician, whether you're playing live, production, engineering, whatever. Like, you have to listen at certain volumes, and those volumes, it does damage. And you try to prevent the damage by putting things in your ears, whether it's earplugs, in-ear monitors, whatever. Boom, ear infection.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that something that you have, well, who knows? I mean, for the right reason,
yeah,
everything's worth it. But is that something that you have had to deal with for your whole life, or was that an adult?
It's more an adult thing. In my younger years, I thought that hearing, like preventing hearing damage was it was like the wussy thing to do.
Yeah.
So you go all of your, like, I didn't start
concerts.
Yeah, concerts. Like, my first concert was like 98. I was like, 16 or something like that. So I saved a little bit of, I saved a couple years there.
What was your first concert?
In bands. My first concert, dude, like first rock/metal concert.
Please, I hope it's something corny.
Oh, it was just 100% cornball. Metallica. No, it was literally the greatest day of my life.
Your
was
first
so
concert
good.
was Metallica.
Metallica, and it was at a very weird time too. Hold on, we're gonna get the footrest now. We're gonna get comfortable.
It was like Metallica After Blaster or whatever it was called.
No, it was it was on the Reload tour.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. But it was a weird time for the band, right? Like, they weren't doing at that point. I'm trying to remember when Cunning Stunts came out. I think that was like 97 or maybe 98. But anyways, the venue in Toronto that they played was the Molson Amphitheater, which it's like a bandstand, like an outdoor, maybe 7,000 cap, I think. And that's like they're like the biggest band in the world now, right? Like,
I can't imagine them playing a venue that small from 1989 on.
Yeah, it was so wild. Toronto seems to do this for them, and I don't know what it is. I've seen them at the Sky Dome. I've seen them it was the Sky Dome. That was a summer sanitarium, 2003, I think. It was like with four other huge bands like Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Mudvayne.
Right.
But this particular show was in a very strange era. 98 was like direct support, Jerry Cantrell doing the Boggy Depot stuff.
Yeah.
And Days of the New were the opener.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like, not a super, like, Cantrell played Boggy Depot stuff and some Alice in Chains tunes, and it was super cool. But, seeing Metallica as your very first and they started the show with Fuel. So you don't know what to expect. A whole bunch of stuff happened. We had lawn seats and we got ushered down to the pit. So we were it was a group of 8 of us. We were all like 16, and we had this 32-year-old guy, Bill, that used to like buy our booze, and he was like the older guy that we hung out with that got all of our stuff for us.
Right.
And we saw commotion on the hill, and we're like, what's going on over there? It's like, these guys are giving away wristbands for the pit. Like, holy shit. So we made a beeline right for this crowd, and we're 16, we're getting out muscled by like 30-year-old dudes, and
Sure.
Bill gets in there, and they go to give him one. He's like, hey, I'm these guys' chaperone, like we need wristband. He got us all wristbands, dude. All 8 of
Really?
us went down into the pit for Metallica, and they start with Fuel.
3
And
cheers for Bill right now.
absolutely, it was bonkers. Start with Fuel, and then boom, fire, just everywhere, fire. Like you could feel it on your face. Like I'd never experienced fire before, and this is my first concert seeing, at that time, my favorite band. And I legitimately thought my eyebrows were gone. That's how close we were to the stage. It was us, the
I
Divider.
remember the feeling that fire. Let
Oh,
me ask you. Let me
yeah.
ask you this: how has that riff and that song aged for you?
Oh, it's still the best.
I hated it when it came out.
Oh, see, here's the thing though. How old are
But
you?
well, I'm 50. So
Okay,
I
so
saw them
I'm
on Monsters of Rock
right.
before Injustice came out, and that it was only that long because the Ozzy show where they were opening was canceled.
Oh, I
And
just lost you there. I lost a whole bunch of your.
oh yeah, it's
It
okay.
came.
It'll say,
Okay.
like don't worry.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I
so
want to know what you said.
the only reason that I didn't see them sooner is because they were touring. I think they were touring. It might have been Motley Crue touring with Ozzy, but I thought it was Metallica, and that show in Seattle got canceled.
Oh no.
And I wanted to go see Day on the Green when I was a kid because I lived down in the area at the time,
Right.
but I was too poor to see them. But I was I was a fan.
Yeah.
I was into it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
by the time that happened, they had eyebrow rings and stuff, and I was like, I don't know.
That's what I grew up in, though. Like
Right. Yeah, of course.
I just turned 39 in September. So, as I said, being a 16-year-old, like we were super into Injustice for All and Puppets and Ride the, like, till this day, Ride the Lightning is still my favorite Metallica album.
Vicious.
It's so good. It's like, that's when they kind of came into their own. It's like, okay, we don't really want to be Motorhead anymore. We want to be this other thing. We want to be faster and more shrill and more flashy. And don't get me wrong, Puppets is incredible.
That's my
Like,
favorite.
yeah, like they're forever going to be known as the band that did Master of Puppets, right? Like everything you've ever done, it's like this is the thing. Here it is. Here's Puppets. But it's like movies and stuff too. It's what you hear first or what you
Of
hear
course.
third, and what's happening around you when you heard that. And I don't know if music's like this for you. It's definitely like this for me. I can think of a song, like a song that gives me goosebumps when I hear it. If I just listen in my head and play it back, literally like electricity leaves my arms. And not a lot of people experience that, and people think that you're making it up. It's like, oh, like, when I see
You're being
music as,
dramatic.
yeah, I see music as colors. It's like, no, it's
Yeah.
it's not like that. Literally, I become electric when I hear certain songs. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what it's called. I'd like to know what the name for that is, but it's got to be some kind of sensory thing. And it happens on almost every song on Ride the Lightning.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. Were you
Yeah.
already playing music at that point? Had you already started playing guitar, or were you just a
Um,
young dirtbag?
I was a young dirtbag. I still think I'm a young dirtbag.
Right.
The
That
just
ship
for
has
men,
sailed, my
yeah,
friend.
the just for men on my face tells me I'm still a young dirtbag. But I was playing, I was learning to play. I hadn't been in a band yet. There was, you know, everybody that I hung out with in high school played, except for me. So I started, like, my dad had a guitar, my dad had an amp. It was like the loudest amp ever at that point
What was
that
it?
I have it in the next room.
Tell me it's a YBA one, please.
It's not, no, but it's something equally as cool and equally as Canadiana. It's a Garnet.
Oh, rad.
Yeah. So it's a Garnet D100 BT is the SKU, like the serial, but it's a stencil amp. And you're a gear guy, you probably know what a stencil amp is. A lot of these companies used to manufacture for other companies. Right. So, the trainer stuff, it was trainer had trainer. Other companies like Garnet out in the prairies and Pepco out in Quebec, they had all these subsidiaries, and like Garnet would build for Sears. They'd build for the United Church of Winnipeg, and that's what this is. It had a Garnet badge or a Granada badge on it, and if you're familiar with like stencil guitars, Granada was like a stencil guitar company, and who knew who made it at that point. It could have been the Fujigen factory in Japan. It could have been anywhere, literally anywhere. It was just a name that got put on a headstock. 100 of them here, 100 of them over there, whatever.
I
So
bought
this
a
has a
10 I think I bought a 10-watt amp at Steve's when I was on tour, and it
yeah.
was called a Gemco. Have
Okay,
you ever
yeah,
heard of this brand?
I think so.
It was great. It was like a volume knob on and
And a
off,
tone,
like
yeah,
he had volume and tone, and that was it. It was
yeah,
it sounded like AC/DC when you turned everything to 10. It
yeah.
was
There's another
great.
company called what is it? Paul. There's an amp company called Paul. It's Paul, and they make like pine cabinets, and it's a 10-inch or an 8-inch speaker, 5-watt, something like that. But all the amp companies of this era were kind of doing the same thing, and that's the amp that I learned how to play on. And even before my dad passed away, he gave it to me because he wasn't using it, and I had an amp collection. I actually tracked down a second head and cabinet in Winnipeg right before, it was just after COVID kind of started around here. One of my buddies is a trucker, and I just threw it out there. I was like, any friends that I have in Winnipeg, can you pick this up for me and hold on to it for like a year? The next time I'm out there on tour, I'll bring it home with me, but I need somebody to get this for me. And my buddy Jay Tack was like, dude, I'm literally rolling through town in the next 3 days. Like, I could just give me the cash and I'll pick. He didn't even ask for the cash. He was just going to pick it up and I'd pay him when he got back. I was like, no, I'll send you the cash. Let's see if we can work this out. His truck ended up breaking down. He was in this limbo, like on the side of the road, him and his wife, for like 4 days. They needed parts for his engine. They couldn't tow his truck. Long and short, we got a second head and a second cabinet. It was a mirror image. One was Granada, one was United, because it was the amp that they made for the church. So I'm super stoked. I plugged both of them in. I've got a what is it? The TC Mimic pedal. So I'm using that as like just like an ABY that I can press it on if I want, and it changes the algorithm to make it more stereo. And there was something missing. There was something. I even took all the tubes out of my dad's amp and put them in the other one in the event that it was like a tube distortion thing or like the a phase inverter, something like that. And it had built-in tremolo too, and that uses a 12AU7 tube. So I was just like matching tubes, and it didn't sound the same. So I held on to it for a while. I ended up selling it just a couple months ago. I've still got Dad's, but his little 40-watt Garnet D100 BT, like I'm pretty sure it's a bass head. But when you plug that into not the cabinet that he had. If you plug that into just a standard 412 with greenbacks, it sounds like an 800. It's
Yeah.
bonkers. It sounds like a 2203. It doesn't have a mid knob. It's
And it's
just
from like
bass.
1973 or something, right?
It's from like 68.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like Plexi era. When did the 1959 stuff come out? I can't remember, but it's it's of that era in a similar tube path, but a built-in trem signal or a circuit. I just couldn't get it to sound. I couldn't get the second one to sound like that one, so I just flogged it. I was done.
I feel like there are, I guess by way of Yorkville, right?
Yeah.
Amp companies, old amp companies that Trainer, I guess, is still around, but
They are
not
100%. Yeah.
not the same, right?
Pete Trainer died a while ago. The company that runs everything is Yorkville now.
Yeah.
So they still have the Trainer trademark
Brand.
and badge, and they still pay homage to the older designs and reissue them from time to time. But
What about
the big
guitars? Were there guitar builders in Canada back in the day, similar to Silvertone and the like, Dan Electro, that kind of stuff?
I'm trying to think about Canadian guitar builders that had like production models. Um, Aside from Godin, I don't think so. Unless there could be, and I know the person, and I'm gonna like eat shit tomorrow or something like. But like Godin has 5 factories, and 3 of them are in the States.
Is that right?
It's either 3 in Canada and 2 in the States, or 2 in Canada, 3 in the States. But they're legitimately the biggest manufacturer of guitars in North America.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it's
incredible.
wild. Yeah, I
They
was
made a
a
guitar with
Godin.
a MIDI pickup in it with the triple play in it that I
Yeah,
really wanted, and they stopped making it, and I'm bummed. I gotta try and find one every few months. Usually, when I need to track a keyboard part and I can't play the keyboards, I
yeah.
think, oh, I should see if I can find one for cheap, and I never can.
I was a Godin artist for 7 years, 6 years ish, up until about 2015, I think. 2015 or 16. Uh, and got to play a lot of those. They've got this room on the second floor of the main office building, and it's just like it's like the tone tasting lab where you can pick any guitar off the wall that's of previous year's production or currently in production, one-offs, prototypes, things that never made it to production. And they got a
Right.
couple amps set up, and you can just plug in and mess around with these things. And the triple play stuff was something that I never sat down and gave it a shot. I know, like,
Ah,
and for me, somebody that's, I've got a studio in the basement, and I do a lot of production work and orchestral samples and piano stuff. It's like I've anytime I'm figuring notes out on a piano roll or inputting the MIDI data, I'm playing my guitar to figure it out. It's like
right.
it would have made perfect sense.
You should find one. You should
I
find
should.
yourself a used one because
Yeah.
they're great. I've used them a lot. I just had to throw my pickup away about a month ago because it stopped working. I had an
Oh, weird.
original, well, it was 10 years old,
Right.
you know, probably close to 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were big. They were into that Roland GK stuff for a long time before the triple play,
Yeah.
like integrated GK pickups. Like in the body, it was routed out in stereo output jack with the MIDI beside it. So it's like a 3 cable jack. That's wild.
Yeah. That's maybe too much for a guy like me. Too much for
Yeah.
me. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm but a simple man.
Yeah. No 4 cable method for you.
No.
No.
You know, I live in like one cable.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
Wireless everything.
Yeah, they do that now.
They do. It's
I saw a wireless expression pedal in my, you know, by me feed as I'm scrolling through, like one of those
yeah.
highlights.
I've seen this thing where it's like it just rocks on the ground. It almost looks like the Tony Hawk Project 8
Oh,
wireless skateboard thing,
oh yeah, yeah.
but you
That's
literally
the electroharmonics thing.
it just sits there. It's flat, and then it's got like a pivot point, and then it's flat again. And you just step on it when you want to use it. It's so
I
strange.
want to make some of those big, thick, goofy shoes like the ravers wore.
Yeah.
And you know, one side would be a wah, a wireless wah, so you can just like move your foot.
I
Maybe they could even have some little wheels that pop out and you could roller skate also.
what are
Gonna be
those
rich.
yeah, what are those things called that all the kids are they called wheelies or
Do they still wear them?
Heelys?
Oh,
Heelys. Yeah, it's like a thing. Like you see kids in the mall. They're walking and then all of a sudden they're just floating.
that's
It's like the first time I saw a like a Bluetooth earpiece. I was like, you just think everybody's schizophrenic for a week and then you find out, oh no, this is
yeah.
this is a thing. This is where we're going. Like,
Everyone is in the Secret Service.
dude, how crazy is it that you can walk through a mall now, video call somebody, and it, that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is that it doesn't phase us anymore,
No,
right? Like
technology is a wackadoo, man.
I remember watching Demolition Man, like 1993, the shower scene with the naked lady, and it's like, oh, that's so far away. And technically, I guess it was like 16 years or 15 years or whatever it happened to be. But video calling, once it became a thing, it wasn't impressive anymore, and that is what's mind-boggling. That we just once we got it, we throw it away. It's like, oh, don't call me anymore. Just
We're
text
on to
me.
the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's
Yeah.
going to be surprised until we can like hologram.
Like legitimately,
Yeah.
like now I'm behind you.
Right.
Just yeah.
I sent you a hologram
Yeah.
instead of a telegram, whatever, a real time hologram where we could be on a couch together, talking,
I'm actually
jamming.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be the next thing for Pro Tools, I think. I've been using Pro Tools since 2004, and I haven't messed around too much with like I don't even know what it's called. I don't know how to use it, but I know that you can be in two different sides of the country working on the same session off somebody's computer. Like you can
Yeah.
open my files from your computer and we can work on the same session. You can record your bits just like we're talking like this. But the next thing is going to be the Oculus. Like we're going to be in a studio room recording a record together through VR, like through Facebook, through Meta. That's going to be the next thing.
What do you think about that? Do you
I'm
think?
terrified.
Me too. I understand the benefit, of
Yeah.
someone not having to get on an airplane, but also what about the experience of making something together in real time tangibly? You can shake hands or hug
Yeah.
afterwards. You can greet one another. It's real.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't want to be like get off my lawn guy, but I also don't. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to urge Skynet on either.
Yeah. There's another very important piece to it is that I feel like you're in the same boat as me where you really like making music with your friends
I don't
and
have any friends.
maybe well get some number one.
Good.
No, but
Are you
like
underwater?
yeah, the whole concept of me touring now, like it's never been to make money. Making records is 100% not about making money. It's an excuse to see my friends and be in their company. We're all like, my vocalist was in Montreal which is a 4.5 hour drive from here. Then he was in Winnipeg, which is like a 26-hour drive. Then he was back in Montreal. Now he's in Calgary again. Not again, but out of Montreal again. So these are opportunities, getting together, doing shows, getting together, doing tours. The same amount of effort goes into, like, if we're doing one show or 17, it's the same amount of effort before the first show.
Sure.
Right. So we tend not to do one-offs. We have to put it together. Like, we've got backing tracks, we've got this, we've got that, we've got, flights to worry about. Like, for one show, it's a lot, and we're not really at a position where we're like, let's do this one show and make a couple grand and make it worth it for everybody, unfortunately. But these are the opportunities that we take to see our friends. Making an album, with Exes for Eyes, the first 2 albums, James came to Toronto. We recorded vocals over a couple days, because I'd, record things and send them out to him, and he'd write to it, and we'd get together. Now he's got a little portable rig with like an Aston Spirit mic and like a Focusrite Scarlett. I taught him how to use Pro Tools over Facebook chat. Like, we did a video chat, and I was, he had some video editing skills, so he understood what waveforms and things were. So, just do it like this, nudge it like that, set your grid up. This is how you monitor your input. And that's how we made the third record. And, I feel like the material on the third record is better than the first 2 albums. But it didn't feel the same making it. It didn't feel the same releasing it. And even listening back, I don't know if I feel as connected to it, because we weren't in the same room.
Because you don't have memories attached to the creation of it. Right.
Yeah. And the ones that
like
I do are all
memories.
Bad. Yeah. Like, the ones that I did, like, I took a break writing that album. I didn't touch my guitar for almost 8 months or 7 months after my dad passed away. It was like, I'm just not interested. Like, it comes in waves. It's like I get these creative bursts where I might riff for a week, record some stuff on my phone, don't touch it for a month, go back and listen, and then hash those ideas out and turn them into full-fledged songs. Sometimes I go 2 years without writing, and that's kind of what happened. We had a bunch of demos that I was working on actively that weren't finished. And unfortunately, my dad passed away, and I just didn't want to do anything for a while. And then coming back and revisiting it, it was like, shit, there's some really good stuff here, and then send demos out to James in Calgary, and he'd track his stuff and he'd send me the stems. But again, the memories were, it's like just the bullshit of putting it all together, and the time and the effort, and literally trying to drag yourself out of the mud to get something done. It's like, the only way you're going to get out is by bringing yourself out of it. Like, nobody's coming coming to, like, you have to do this.
Well, there's always that, there's that comedic and emotional relief of when you're on take 18 of trying to nail that solo and you're not getting it, and someone is there and they're like, they may, like, they just lighten the mood. And if they're not there, it just is a burden.
It is.
And there's not a big payoff when you do finally nail it. You're not like, all right, I'm the king of the world. There's no one there to, like, pat you on the back or, whatever.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry, my throat's super dry. It's Aha, the flavored carbonated water.
Very nice.
Yeah,
that's a Canadian brand. Aha.
Aha.
Taste on me.
Yeah, exactly. I do enjoy a pineapple bubbly, but the Aha was on sale tonight. I've been trying to lower my beer intake, and the Aha is I'm subsidizing my bubbles.
Right.
That thing that you were
Let's
talking
do
about.
this.
Yeah.
Oh, say what you were going to say, but then what I think I would like to do is maybe go back in the timeline of your world and sort
Yeah.
of talk about how 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 Exes came to be,
Yeah.
and can I speak? Can I say Exes like informally, like bro? Is that like is that okay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exes, bro. That's how we say it.
Exes.
It's very hard to say X's for eyes. You always want to like embellish the four, like X's for eyes, and it makes you feel like just pompous, right? So, but when you let it just roll like X's for eyes, people are like,
What was that word?
sorry, yeah,
Was that Greek?
a sphincter says what?
Yeah.
Like it's X's for eyes. Yeah. One thing that I will say about that writing process of nailing solos and the self-deprecating kind of thing and the pat on the back and this and that, when I got back into the groove of writing and completing things, the solo stuff, I do Facebook lives or Instagram live or whatever, and I'd suss it out. Like I'm sitting there, crushing cocktails, like biting into things and like missing them horribly or nailing them or missing them a little bit, or like, take 17, just trying to get this, like, oh, I don't have a 22 fret guitar, I guess I'll play the neck pickup and see if it works.
Right.
And those things do work. Doing the stuff for that last album, one of the solos, one of my favorite solos on the album, John, we don't call him John, it's Sully, he hates being called John, but Sully from Sully Guitars was bigging me up, and I'm sitting there playing an Ibanez, and he's like, go for it, like, do this, do that, that was the one. I'm like, it's not the one. He's like, it was the one, don't touch it. But Sully was great, sussing those things out, and getting a feel for it, and having that kind of, go get him tiger. It's like you can read the comments as you're tracking the stuff, and people were really cool.
Was it ever distracting?
No, I don't think so.
You were enjoying it.
Yeah,
you're an exhibitionist.
I am. I also currently not wearing pants.
Yeah. That doesn't make you an exhibitionist. That makes you a modernist.
Yeah, that's a thing, right? Like the COVID.
I'm not wearing pants or underwear.
Yeah, there you go. I saw somebody post a picture today, and it was like, my kid has pajama days on Fridays, and somebody at work had something similar. It was like, bring your COVID attire in. So people were wearing like,
Suit
a
tops.
blazer. Yeah, a blazer, a button-up shirt, a tie, and then like
Gym
Argyle
shorts.
socks and like silk underwear. The Argyle socks killed me. It's like, you're still putting on good socks.
I respect that.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's crank it. Let's crank it back.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go from. Let's pick up. We'll pick up the story immediately after the Metallica show.
Yeah.
So you're playing guitar, but you're not playing in a band.
No, they're, noodling. My best friend, Jay Smith, was the guy that got me into playing guitar. It wasn't my dad. My dad wasn't good. He could play the shit out of House of the Rising Sun, and that was it. Like he could arpeggiate
popular
chords,
dad
like
song.
Boom, that was his go-to. But my buddy Jay Smith was the guy that was like, here, try this guitar out, and just kind of fumbled around for a bit. And I think it was Christmas 1997 or 96. No, when did Lenny Kravitz, what was it, Fly Away or Fly or
Oh, that would have been
something?
around then, 97 probably.
Yeah. So I remember getting a guitar that Christmas, and that was like the song that I learned how to play, because it had like a kind of
Right.
like that syncopated like
Yeah.
so learning how to do that kind of stuff, that was a big song, the early stages for me. And this
Right.
is like was it grade 10? That's probably grade 10 or grade 9 or something like that. So I had a couple years of messing around in my buddy's basement. He had a couple cool guitars, an all white Charvel with like, phase switches and stuff, right? Like it was like
Yeah.
a hum single, a couple phase switches, a coil split for the bridge. It had EMG select pickups, which at the time we thought, oh, those were like the good ones,
Yeah.
like designed by Seymour Duncan. Um, but he was the guy that got me into playing, and he was the guy that got me into rock and metal. In like I grew up in, not, I wouldn't say like an urban community, but it definitely wasn't like the suburbs.
Right.
I grew up listening to a lot of late 80s and early 90s hip hop, and then when we moved 25 minutes east, everybody out here was listening to rock and metal, and grunge was a big thing. And I kind of missed that boat because we moved in 95. So like that explosion, that boom, I kind of got into things after the dust had settled. Um, but there was a program on Much Music in Canada called Loud, and it was kind of like Headbangers Ball, right?
Right.
So they had 1 hour every, I can't remember if it was on Fridays or Saturdays, but it was like 11 p.m. to midnight. And we'd stay up and tape
Metal
it.
never got the prime time slot.
No, it still doesn't, man.
Always been the underdog.
I had a radio show for 2 years that was on at Monday nights at 9.
Right.
you know, but I remember hanging out with these guys. Like I just started hanging out with them, and they were talking about Loud in last week's episode of Loud. This is on like a Monday or something, hanging out at a buddy's house, and he puts a tape in, and he just starts. He had a pretty good. He had a very cool stereo setup. His parents were pretty lenient. He could crank things in the basement and get away with it.
Yeah.
He still does it, and his wife puts up with it. It's ridiculous. We're like 40 now, and now he's got money for like the audiophile stuff, and like his
Right.
house literally shakes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But he threw on this tape, and of that era, it was like Drag the Waters, Fear Factory's Replica, what was the Slayer, that late '90s
Musica.
Slayer.
Music and
Yeah.
Diabolus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'm
like
not
that
I'm
record. It
a
gets a
lot
bad
of
rap because there's like some weird tremolo
Yeah.
stuff. I think it's fucking killer.
Yeah. I didn't miss the boat with Slayer. It's just like if I'm gonna listen to that type of music, I'm gonna listen to something else.
What's
Like
your
all the
What's
respect
your go-to?
for thrash stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't say Annihilator, um, no, but if I'm gonna listen to Slayer, I'd rather just listen to like Destruction.
Right.
You know, um, if I'm gonna listen to Slayer, I'd rather like right now bands that I think are killing, like Revocation is like the in my personal opinion, pick the worst Revocation song and it's still better than the best Slayer song.
Wow.
That it's just
It's bold.
I've never been big
Thrash
into
is making
Slayer.
a huge comeback.
Oh yeah.
It is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And a lot of the classic bands are making their best material.
Yeah.
Death Angel making their best material.
Yeah.
Testament arguably making their best material.
Yeah. What was it, the last Brotherhood of the Snake, or Is that what it was called?
So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then
Even
and then there's new thrash bands coming along, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I'm stoked about it.
It's you know, it's a very over what's the word? Oversaturated, I guess. You know, it's like things happen, comes to a head, everybody loses interest in it, and then you go do this other thing, and then you come back. It's like putting riffs on your phone. It's like, I'm gonna let these
Right.
simmer for a bit. Just let this genre kind of die down for a couple of years, right? Let the bands that weren't gonna stay together break up and let new life get, kind of inhaled into that,
Yeah.
pardon me, into that genre. There's what was trying
When
to
so
remember.
when did you start getting into, you know, like metal? Like when you were like, all right, I'm not going to mess around with this Lenny Kravitz riff anymore.
Yeah,
I'm on to like, I'm going to learn.
the entire Kill 'Em All album.
Right.
um, it was I was learning the Metallica stuff shortly thereafter. Like when I was like, okay, cool. Like, I broke my knee. I wanted to be a pro hockey player. That was always my goal. And I think every young Canadian male at one point or another wants to play hockey. Like even if you're 9, you're like pro hockey player. 13 pro
Right.
hockey player,
No one wants to
and
be a firefighter up there. No one's like fireman or
no,
spaceman.
yeah. Um, it but it's expensive. It's a very expensive sport, and we didn't have a lot of money. I broke my knee playing, like in a game, shattered my leg, and had to take a year off. I was in a cast for 4 months
That's
and
terrible.
needed, yeah, it was the worst, but it was the second worst. My dad died. That's the worst. But but
Right.
this, the second worst thing was being literally laid up in a bed for 4 months in a cast because every time you stood up, your foot just went purple.
Right.
Um,
Were you a
so
big kid? I mean, you're
yeah,
big.
yeah, I'm just shy of 6'3". The reason we stopped drinking beer is because we hit 260.
I got it.
That's yeah, that's a big number, So we're drinking the ahas, and
Uh-huh.
we're back down to 250. But my walking weight is probably around 240. Like that's what I should be,
Right.
just walking around. In the summer, I do a lot of outdoor work, and I'll drop down to like, low 220s, 223, 225, somewhere around there.
Sure.
But you know, I was a big defenseman. I could block a shot without trying.
Right.
um, but that's when I started to kind of get into stuff. It was like, okay, if I'm going to sit here, I might as well noodle and learn how to do some things. Those loud tapes were super influential, but hearing Slayer and Pantera and Fear Factory and Sepultura and all that kind of stuff, it was a lot to take in. I was intrigued, but I started to find out about other music that was a little bit more groove oriented, not as aggressive. Got into like Ozzy and Manson. Like it was easier to digest. It wasn't as like
Right.
in your face. Like you could take a breath. So I got into that stuff.
There was
That's
music that was made for arenas, though. Like
yeah,
a lot. Once an experienced person starts playing a bigger room, they put more space in their music because they have to make music that will transmit and translate with big crowds. So
yeah. That's what just happened to Ghost, right?
for sure, and I'm still into. I mean, even their first record wasn't like hyperactive. It was just more geared
Yeah,
towards like vintage vibes.
yeah. What was What was that second album? It starts with a like Mayora or Mayora or something.
I don't know the names of anyone's
Yeah,
albums.
I have a hard time with my own song titles.
Yeah.
When somebody, that meme, it's like, metal girl wears band shirt. It's like,
Yeah.
all these guys like name 3 songs. It's like, I can't, I'd be hard pressed to name 3 songs from my favorite band, like let alone my own band.
Right.
It's like if I don't have it in front of me,
I
I'm
can't name
lost.
3 members of my own band.
Yeah. But it was, I started to get into heavier stuff shortly thereafter. I think it was, like you look at what my favorite bands are, they're still very groove oriented. Um, you know, uh, Even like I saw Sabbath in 2001,
Oh, yeah.
and that was such a trip, but it was Ozfest. That was, that was all new metal for the most part. You know what I mean? Of that, like, you had your Slipknot. Like I love Slipknot, dude. Like
I didn't get it when in the
yeah,
90s when it came out. I didn't
me
understand
either.
Slipknot because I was like, "Oh, the weird kids at the mall wear those
Yeah,
shirts." And so I'm not it's not really my thing,
yeah,
but go see them and you will change your mind.
absolutely.
They are the real deal. And the first time I saw them, I was like, "Yeah, I'm in."
Yeah. And that was my first time seeing them too at Ozfest with Manson, with Sabbath, Black Label Society. Um, who else played? Mudvayne. It was big, and it came to Canada. That was the first year it came to Canada, and it was only, I think it was the only show in Canada. I don't even think it went to Montreal. It's like it came up for, like, Toronto is basically Buffalo North. Like it
Right.
was Buffalo, get into Toronto and get out. And to do that for a whole festival, I can't imagine what the work visas and stuff are like for one show. Like
Yeah.
that's just insane. But it was shortly thereafter, and even now, it's like I'm on this trajectory where, like, I love groove, power groove. I love prog, like Dream Theater, Symphony X, Opeth. All these bands. Um, I'm starting to get heavier now. Like I just did vocals on a black metal album, and it's something I've wanted to do for a very long time, like a death metal or a black metal type of album. Um, but having that kind of like on my resume, or not even resume, just like, achievement unlocked. It's
Right.
Xbox kudos. It's that's so I'm still dabbling in things, but then I'll find a band that has it all. You know, Top 5 favorite bands of all time, Soilwork, without a doubt. And it's like there's people that listen to In Flames. There's people that listen to what is it? Like The Haunted. There's people that listen to, you know, does Soilwork, to me, Soilwork has everything from every band that I like. Like it's the hub. It's like they've got blast beats in certain songs. They've got the rock opera in certain songs. And as the band gets older, it's getting more diverse. Some of the heaviest stuff they've ever done have been on their last album or two. Some of the most contemporary rock things that they've done in terms of arrangements and whatnot have been on the last 2 albums. It's a huge, I can't think of the word right now, but it's adventurous. It's very, it takes
They're
a
not
lot to,
right. They're not
it
resting
takes,
on their laurels.
no, they're always pushing the boundaries with every album they put out. And I appreciate that so much. Bands like Scar Symmetry, doing the same thing. It's like everything they put out just keeps getting better. And now there's this new band, new to me anyways. I only found out about them through doing my radio show, called Vola. And it's like you listen to the music and you expect it to be screaming or growling or whatever, and then the vocalist comes in and it's just so soothing. But the music in the background is like Meshuggah. It's Meshuggah with clean vocals.
Really?
Yeah, and it's so good.
I mean, anything that is Meshuggah or Meshuggah-esque is
Right.
probably good.
Yeah. Well, they've come out publicly and like apologized for Gent, right? Like like there's a lot of bands that want to sound like Meshuggah that don't necessarily sound like Meshuggah because they're not Meshuggah.
Right.
It's like, just because you're tuning to drop Q and playing 13/4,
Right.
and your singer growls, it's like, it doesn't make you Meshuggah. Those guys have something very special. But to the point where like Scar Symmetry stopped for a while because the guitar player Per joined Meshuggah when Frederick Thorndahl like took a hiatus. So it's all kind of like intertwined. All those bands have they share a common thread, and I'm finding that as I pull on that fabric, it's like all these things are kind of linked together, and it's like I should just move to Sweden. That's
I
that's where
I hear black metal influence in Exes. What was your entry point with black metal? Because black metal also was beyond me. Like my black metal appreciation begins and ends with Venom,
right.
and when all of the bands that are considered black metal sort of came along in the 90s, I was sort of I was moving on. Like blast
Yeah.
beats don't groove to me. Like I was like, Pantera, that grooves.
Yeah.
But that's granddad's metal now. Do kids listen
Man.
to Pantera? I don't know. And the
I don't know
symphonic,
either.
the production value of all the original black metal stuff was a high hurdle for me. I had a tough time with that stuff.
Yeah, even doing this last record with my buddy Trevor from Death Was Looming. Pardon me. We had to make a conscious effort. It's like we want the music to be authentically black metal and like somewhat symphonic. Just in the guitar, the way the guitars are layered. There's no orchestra or choir or anything, but we've got layers of guitars that kind of move the same way an orchestra would. But we didn't want it to sound like it was, recorded through a soup can, going into a tape deck, going into a VCR, going into your ears. It was, so we focused on having a modern production with a, I guess, contemporary song style. And I appreciate those things. I appreciate bands like what is it, Borknagar and Wintersorg and stuff like that. There's some things that I can't listen to just based on my love for production.
Right.
There's even from big bands. Like I love the songs on Deftones' Saturday Night Wrists. There's a frequency in there at the volume that I want to listen to music at. There's a frequency that literally is an ice pick in my ears. So I don't
Who
listen to
made
that
that
album.
record?
I don't
Do
know.
you know? I don't know if Terry Date made that one.
I don't know. It's sometimes the mix, and not to say that my mix of that album would have been any better. There's just something in the finality of things that it's like, if I'm in a Deftones mood, I'm not putting that album on.
What are you putting on?
For Deftones?
Yeah.
I'd pick self-titled right now just because it's the album that I'm least familiar with, and I'd want to hear it again. I love Diamond Eyes
It's good.
quite a bit. Yeah. Um, you know, what we were talking about being able to throw an album on, it's the electricity coming out of your arms. White Pony is forever going to be that album. I just
I'm
associate that
still in
like
around the fur
2000.
guy.
That's cool.
It's like has so much energy. And I know
Yeah,
it's not experimental in the way that White Pony is, but yeah, White Pony is pretty fucking spectacular.
it's so good.
Did they win
I
a
didn't even
Grammy for that?
um no, because that was the same year that LD50 came out and Mudvayne won a Grammy.
Not really.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, 2001, LD50. They won a
They won a Grammy over White Pony.
I think so. If it's
Huh.
2001, yes. Because they went to the Grammys in white tuxedos and bullet holes, like a special effects makeup, like entrance wound, exit wound, blood all over the white tux. That's how they showed up to the Grammys and won.
I kind of like that.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's so cool.
Why not do that in Hollywood?
Well, that's the thing, man. Like, there's heavy metal is like two of my other favorite things. It's like pro wrestling
Right.
and horror movies. So if you can
This
take
is a common theme for metalheads.
absolutely, it's all the
'Cause
same thing. It's all the same circus.
you know what? I'm glad we're here right now because I asked this question to someone recently. I don't even remember who I asked it of.
Yeah.
But you're a smart, well-spoken guy and a metalhead, and there's a lot of ridiculousness
Oh yeah.
in metal, right? Just like the
Yes.
subject matter is often ridiculous and
Yeah.
just like it's not Bob Dylan or
Right.
whatever. It's not
Yeah.
Springsteen. It's not like perhaps it's storytelling, but it is not, you
It's
know,
Evil Dead.
yeah, totally. And that
Yeah.
and that's awesome, right? How do
Oh yeah.
you reconcile that? Like how do you is there an ever a point where you're listening to something you're like, "Man, this is so dumb." Because I do all the time. I'm like, "Man, this is dumb. I don't even
Yeah.
care. It's so dumb. I love it."
Yeah. It happens every day I listen to music. Even like it's everything. Every like what today's Thursday. Last night I was watching AEW on TSN, and it was the same thing. It's like I'm a 39-year-old man sitting downstairs in his basement with my like I'm not drinking beer anymore. I've got my little THC vaporizer,
No?
and I'm watching grown men, sweaty, half naked, grown ass men like slap each other in the chest, and it's just so amusing. It's just so amusing.
Who
And music.
is there a Meshuggah of wrestling? Is there someone that just has like taken it to another level with it? I remember when I was a kid, like the folks that did a lot like really spectacular rope and aerials were, I was into. Leap and Lanny Popoff was kind of my favorite.
Right.
He was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, that era was, I mean, it's happening still. Like the high spots and the high flyers in AEW. It's not about the big guy anymore. It's not about
Right.
your 6'10"
Undertaker.
Undertaker
Yeah.
or Kane or which is unfortunate because one of my favorite wrestlers right now was Braun Strowman, Adam Scher. He's doing his own thing. He didn't sign with another company after he got let go. He did everything they wanted him to do. He lost 65 pounds. He looks incredible. He was kind of a big, stocky, burly guy. Now he's like bigger than Hulk Hogan, like in his prime, and just
Right.
completely shredded. he did everything the company wanted him to do, and then they let him go. It's like, well, okay, so it's not about that anymore. It's
Right.
like the stuff that Owen Hart was doing, the stuff that Jericho was doing. Jericho's still doing it, but like everything that those guys were doing, like Blue Blazer, Owen Hart stuff, backflips and the high spots and everything. That's what a lot of guys in AEW are doing now. But the guy that took it to a different place, like outside of Undertaker, a modern take on that would have been Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, and he got let go. And it's mind-boggling. He was the biggest merch seller for the company for like 3 years straight. Biggest mover of merchandise, and they let him go. And he was the guy that tied pro wrestling. I'm going to say metal just for aesthetics, but it's pro wrestling and horror. He tied it together, created a character in The Fiend, and he's the guy. He's the Meshuggah of pro wrestling.
Was there ever a time when you thought, all right, the hockey thing is out the window. Maybe I could wrestle? Was that ever a thought?
It was a thought that was put into my head in about 2003. So I would have been 21. No, I was 20. I hadn't turned 21 yet. I was doing a cross Canada trip. We were putting in some sensors in parking lots for curbside pickup systems.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with music at all, but the company that I was working for at the time was a live, like a production company for events, corporate, music, raves, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the company I was working for at the time. And one of the guys had developed this system, a POS system, where you could call a phone number. It would go to the closest restaurant, so Swiss Chalet, Milestones, Montana's, that type of thing, all owned by this blanket company called Cara Foods. And he pitched them this idea. Pardon me. And they went for it. And we did 75 restaurants over the course of, it was like a 3-week trip, and then another 2 weeks, and then another week here and 2 weeks there. And we were holed up in Lake Louise, Alberta, like in Banff. And we drove through the mountains at night. We knew we were going to be staying at this hotel. I'd never driven through the mountains. So we're driving through, and it's like, okay, this is very cool. I'm listening to Devin Townsend's Terria album in my in-ear. So I'm listening to, I'm seeing all the things that he's writing about, right? And then it gets dark and the album ends. We end up at the hotel. I wake up the next morning, open the curtains, and get to see Lake Louise, Banff, for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And it was so intense. And I'm standing there at the window in my underwear. And I rock the tighties, right? But like now I'm wearing boxer briefs, but back then it was just briefs.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, he came out of the shower. He's like, "Dave, you ever thought about being a wrestler?" I'm taking in this beautiful view, and I guess I ruined his view standing in front of the window with just my underpants on. But at that point, I think that was right around the time that I stopped watching wrestling. I was watching pretty regularly up until I was about 20, and then didn't watch for you catch the pay-per-views, get together with a bunch of buddies, have a couple beers, watch SummerSlam or WrestleMania or whatever. But weekly shows, didn't watch it for over 15 years.
Right.
And it legitimately wasn't until COVID nixed live music. I don't know what it's like where you are, but in Canada, restrictions were so tight for so long. Live music just wasn't a thing for 22 months.
Yeah.
So how else do you facilitate that need for seeing somebody perform?
Right.
The only thing that was going on was was wrestling. You know, it's like Netflix, watch a new horror movie every night. AEW's on, what is it, Monday Night Raw on Mondays. I can't remember what was on Tuesdays. AEW Dynamite on Wednesdays. Thursday was something but there's wrestling every day of the week.
Is it?
And a
Let
horror
me ask
movie
you
every
this:
night.
that you know how there's classic sports networks on different cable networks, and you can just you can go watch some, a football or baseball game from 1971. There's
Yeah.
this is there a wrestling equivalent?
Mm-hmm.
There is.
There was. So the WWE network in the States was basically like an app where you could just on demand pull things up.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy. It wasn't like that in Canada. It was different licensing. So I have the network, but I can only watch what they broadcast on their channel. In the States, it's an on-demand service, or it was. NBC just bought all the licensing rights for legacy matches and legend matches and stuff like that. So the back catalog, I don't know how they work it now, but I know it's not available through the WWE network. You have to have Peacock, and then you can access that stuff.
Let's get back to music.
Yeah.
We took a real sidestep there.
Yeah.
How did we do that? Because we were talking about Meshuggah and your passions, horror, metal, and wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we hop back into the timeline here, where were we? About 2003, 4?
Yeah. That's all that Kara Food stuff and Dave, you should be a wrestler. That was about 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So had you started playing in bands at this point?
Yeah, I was, at that point, I was on band number 2, or just finished band number 2. So from 2000 to 2002, I was playing with a group of guys. And then 2003 to 2004, played with another group of guys. In that second group, I played bass and did vocals. Lead vocalist. Started in the band doing lead vocals. Wasn't playing. And then the bass player and the drummer quit. I brought in one of my buddies who is currently he's the drummer for Exes, Aaron Spink. I've been playing music with that guy for literally almost 20 years. So we brought him in, and it was like a progressive metal band. Bass player quit, drummer quit. I bring my buddy in. I'm like, I'll do bass. I can't play and sing at the same time.
It's hard to play bass and sing at the same time.
The thing is, when it's just a driving riff in 8th notes or 16th notes, it's like, okay, cool. But if you're pardon me, locking up, if you're locking up with the bass drum, out the window, useless. I am completely useless. Even with the driving kind of riffs, just playing 8th notes or 16th notes, it's like I'm still horrendous. But with the bass, it was a little bit easier because the guitar players were so flashy in that band. I don't want to say flashy like it's a bad thing. They were so talented that nobody was watching what I was doing with my bass anyways.
Wasn't even on.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It could have. I could have had
just
gas.
This moment.
Yeah. Could have had gas that night and felt the rumble.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing with a big amp back then, anyways. I was playing with a 15-inch Yorkville combo or something. And nobody's got monitors in any venue in Toronto. It's a lot better now, but back then, you're playing the pool hall, and it's the only thing that's going through the PA are vocals. That's it.
Right.
But yeah, I was on band number 2 by that point. I wanted to get back into playing guitar once that band broke up. I was like, I don't want to sing anymore. I don't want to do this, flashy, noodly stuff and do, the singer doesn't do anything for 5 minutes while everybody does a solo trade-off. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I joined a band called Man with Target. Their guitar player, Tom, quit, and it was progressive hardcore, which I was up for the challenge. You know, it's like, I don't want to do the super fast, noodly stuff all over the place, but when there's bursts of it or like atonal stuff that's like, that's not anything that I've ever heard, like those group of notes played together. It's not a scale. It sounds horrifying. It was kind of like Dillinger Escape Plan meets Every Time I Die. That's what it sounded like when I came in. After writing with the guys for about a year and putting another album out, it really turned into a metal band. And at that point, the singer was like, well, I'm done. I don't want to do this metal stuff. Like, he wanted to do the hardcore stuff, and he was happy with the way it sounded, like old school Alexis on Fire, like the bouncy guitars. You know, that's what it sounded like. And then we started to, it's like, okay, here's the Pantera influence, here's the Symphony X stuff. And it just kind of turned into another thing, got another singer on board, do another album in like 2000, and we started writing in 2008 at that point. Like, I don't want to just skip over 4 years of, you know, playing 100 shows a year.
Sure.
But that's what it was. It was like, you know, in the van every weekend, show on Friday, show on Saturday, sometimes a show on Sunday, every day for at least 2 years, or every week for at least 2 years. And then after 2 years, you're doing maybe, you know, like 25 shows a year. And then the next year you can see it tapering. It's, you know, you're getting older, responsibilities become more apparent, and doing 100 shows a year wasn't possible anymore.
Right.
But that's, you know, that's what it was for like 4 years, from like 2005 to 2009. We had to have played, it had to have been 300 shows.
Wow. Through this time, when you made a record,
yeah,
in that time, that first record, are you involved in the production at all?
I was the production.
You were. Okay.
Yeah,
when did that stuff start also?
In between band number 2 and band number 3, I interned at a studio. I wanted to learn how to make my own records because I didn't want to pay anybody the money.
Costs a lot of money.
Yeah. It does. It costs so much money, man. And I had a family friend who was a vintage guitar dealer that had a studio. You know, retail and all that stuff would have been $1 million, but I didn't have to pay for it. You know, it's like, I'll show up. It's the Kid Rock thing. You know, it's like, do the work, sweep the floors, make the coffee, do all the stuff, use the studio on downtime when it's not booked.
Right.
And I took that a step further. So that was like 2003, 2004. One of the girls that was recording was an actress, and I interned on her record. The main engineer quit. So now they've got the studio booked. It's me and my buddy with a Pro Tools HD3 rig, like a full rack of 192s.
Yeah.
A Mitsubishi Westar console, 48 inputs, using Pro Tools. And I've been using the system for literally a week. And this guy quits. So now it's up to me and my buddy to make the
trial
record.
By fire.
Yeah. It was so intense. So intense. Record got put out. It did not bad.
Wait a minute. So were you were charged with tracking the record? You didn't have to mix the record, right?
I mixed the record, buddy. I did keyboards and bass on the album. She did a handful of live shows for it.
Was that the first record you ever mixed?
Oh God, yeah.
It's not like, it's not the easiest thing in the world to make a recording sound professional and good.
It didn't.
Especially after 2 weeks of a week of learning how to track,
Yeah.
and then, all right, how do I do this part?
Yeah. Well, it went on for 3 months. And, by the end of the first month, it's like, okay, we've figured it. It's like, the ins and the
Right.
outs of how to make it all work. One of the I'll never ever do this again. I kind of did it last week and something sounded really cool. I was like, oh, I can't do that. I promised myself I'd never do it again. The guitar player didn't want anything to do with the project after he recorded his guitar parts, but we needed a second rhythm. And he was a really good guitar player. So instead of getting him to track everything one more time, because he was in such a foul mood about the whole thing, we kind of hijacked this thing from him. And I didn't know until afterwards that he wanted to mix the record. But he just didn't want to come back and do a second guitar. So we created a digital duplicate of his guitar and just shifted it a little bit, which just made it out of phase.
Right.
Like it
You're
sounded
like, this is what doubling is, right?
Yeah, dude, it sounded.
Wait a minute, you did this last week?
Okay, Pro Tools has this feature. It's an actual plugin now. And if you move the stereo image 2000 samples, you get a fake, like the Two Notes Captor X has like this algorithm that turns a mono signal into stereo. It's an alternating thing. It's like a step algorithm where the first step is this. The TC Mimic pedal does the same thing.
Right.
It's a phase shifter, but it moves where it's shifting it to, so it's never robotic. Your brain can hear that it's 1,000 samples behind 2,000. Your brain knows. So it randomizes it. It'll be 50 samples, 2,000 samples, 400 samples, and it just jumps back and forth. That would have been fantastic to have in 2004, but we didn't have that. But now Pro Tools has this feature. I can't remember. I think it's called Time Adjust. And on a stereo track, a stereo audio track, or a stereo bus, you can take a mono signal and make it 100, like 100 and 100, pan left and right. And it sounds good. Yeah. It doesn't sound bad. It's how I take a demo track if I can't recreate something, or I don't want to learn how to, like, just in a demo when I'm sending it off to James, if I don't want to double track it. So how long have I known about this then? Maybe 2 months, because I sent him a track a couple weeks ago. You can move it like 4,000 samples and it just sounds like two guitars in a very wide stereo image. It's a great plugin. But we did that to this guy's guitar, but we didn't do it in a gap that big. We did it by like 20 milliseconds. So it just sounded like it was in a shoebox.
Right.
Like it sounds so, those ISO cabs.
When was the last time you listened to that recording?
A very long time ago.
Is it tough to listen to?
It's very tough. It's very tough. It doesn't sound good. We got it professionally mastered, and I remember going to the mastering studio and the guy was just kind of like, really? Like you could just see it in his face. He's like, oh, here's another one. Everybody's recording from home now, not knowing that it wasn't done on like an 001. It was done on like a $50,000 recording rig, and it sounded like it was done on a 2-input 001.
Right.
It sounded worse than a 2, because people were using 001s and making good sounding projects. Like all that that late 90s, early 2000s, like Brian McKnight stuff. That's all on an 001.
Right.
It wasn't even a 4-input 002. It was like the 1 or 2-input 001. But yeah, so having done all that in 2008, I ended up moving into the studio house. I needed a place. I couldn't live at home anymore. And I had already had this relationship with the owner where, family friends for years. His daughter, my sister, played on the same ringette team together. So, I've known him for a very long time at this point. I want to get into this field full time. He's got the place. I've got the bands. Let's do it. and I moved into the house for like a year. I think it was 13 months, and didn't record a lot for other people. But I had free room and board, and I got to use the studio whenever I wanted. It was pretty decent. I got like a, $250 a week just to be on call. And I got to, there was always food. There was,
Right.
I had my room in the basement. It was a cool gig for a 25-year-old.
What was your experience like making the next record that you made versus that first one?
The next record was on so I wasn't at the studio at that point. I purchased my own 002 rig with like a Presonus 8-channel. It wasn't even an 002. No, I had the Presonus FirePod. It was an 8-input USB. That was my first interface with like a really horrible Windows PC. But we made the album. We made it work.
You did it
It was
with the 8. You didn't have like a ADAT extension, another 8 or whatever, anything like that. Just like
that the FirePod. I don't think you could daisy chain them, and if you could, the reason why I didn't have a second one is because I couldn't afford it.
Sure.
It was like drums. It was like minimalistic. Yeah, we close mic toms, but it was like kick, snare, top, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, hi-hat, overhead left, overhead right. Those are my 8. So no ambient mics, no bottom snare, no ride bell, no spot miking things. And we recorded in bedrooms. My drummer, his parents had like a really nice house. He was still living with them. Recorded drums in his bedroom. Recorded vocals, guitars, and bass at my house. I didn't have a proper like reamp box. We recorded all the bass DI. One of the gnarliest things I've ever I've experimented, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Sure is.
Buddy, I recorded a bass DI, sent it to a DVD-R burner. So the speaker outputs from Pro Tools into a DVD-R burner with headphones so I could listen to make sure it was actually tracking. Recorded all the bass DIs to a DVD-R as audio because I didn't know that I could consolidate bounce down to it. Like I thought I had to burn it. Worst. But that's how we reamped the bass. I hooked a DVD player's audio outputs to an SWR head, which then powered the cabs, which we then mic'd back into the session. And I just dragged the waveforms over and lined it up. Because I didn't have it, I didn't have a reamp box because I didn't know they existed. I was like, right. I know how we can make this work. Now it's a plugin. It was probably a plugin back then too. I didn't purchase one. Line 6 amp farm did exist back then. Waves GTR2 was around. I just didn't have those things.
Right.
I think there was a SansAmp 1 plugin that just sounded like ass. So we didn't end up using it. I'm sure I could turn the SansAmp 1 into a fantastic plugin now. I just didn't know how to, I didn't know how to use those things back then. I didn't know that they were there. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to burn it to a DVD, play it back through the amp, and then mic your cab up because you don't want to use a DI tone. You want some hair on it. And that's how we did it. And to this day, I think the bass player still hates the way his bass sounds on that album. But yeah, that was it. And then I started demoing stuff with bands for free. Like we had buds all over. Like all of our buddies' bands were like signed to indie labels. Mm-hmm. There's a band out of Ottawa or Gatineau, I think it's the Quebec side of Ottawa, Gatineau, and a band called Fuck the Facts. And they were like, a grindcore band that we played a bunch of shows with. and they got signed to Relapse Records, and our friends and I Hate Sally got signed to Underground Operations, and Protest the Hero got signed to Underground Operations, and all these bands that we were playing shows with were getting these wicked deals. Maybe not wicked deals, but when you're, 20,
when you're without a
24,
deal, any
when
deal
you're with,
seems pretty sweet.
yeah, just sitting there like, come on, and I think the move would have been recording our songs with a proper producer and paying money, and that may have taken us to the next step, but maybe it wouldn't have. We'll
Right.
never know. But before the second record with those guys is when I got the Annihilator gig.
How did that come together?
It was through chance. One of the guys that I worked with my seasonal outdoor gig, doing automated lawn sprinklers and low voltage lighting systems.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
Awesome.
One of the guys that I worked with, he was in a band called, I can't remember, but they were on like Black Box Records, and they were doing stuff. They had a deal, and they were playing, and they were touring. He got a call from Waters. Like they were doing well enough that Waters called him about the bass gig. He said, I can't do it, but my buddy Dave, ask him. I'll ask him if he's up for it, and then I'll give him your number. So Waters gave him his number, and Mark gave me Waters' number, and I called him and had a chat, and it was like, your buddy says you're good. And I was like, I guess, I'm good enough to say, yeah, I'll try. And that's all you can do. I got, I think it was 2 or 3 songs. Waters was like, learn these, record them, send me the DIs. It's like, okay, cool. Let's do it. So I sent him the files, and
they were new songs.
The Annihilator stuff?
Yeah.
No, it was
just like, here's some stems, record yourself playing these and send
no,
me the DI.
it was the album. Play along to the album, but send me your DIs so I can hear them isolated. So I had to learn like Alice in Hell, Refresh the Demon, and I think Stonewall. I think it was definitely Alice in Hell and Refresh the Demon. And he let me know, he's like, they're okay. It wasn't like, fucking A, man, these are great. Let's
go.
Come out to Ottawa and come tour with us. But I think at the time, his bass player, Russ Bergquist, just a monster bass player. He either couldn't do it anymore or didn't want to do it anymore or something like that. And they had a bunch of stuff lined up. He had to find somebody quick. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. The job that I'm currently working, the one that I had then, I quit halfway through the season, went out to Ottawa, learned a 75-minute set, watched. Russ was there. I remember walking into Waters' house. He picked me up at the airport. Like, the whole band is at his house. We walk in for dinner, and everybody's introducing themselves, and Russ is like, hey, how's it going? I'm Russ. I'm the guy you're replacing. It's like, oh God, this is awkward. But I it's still to this day, I have no idea, how.
Was he helpful? Was there stuff that he helped you with?
Not in terms of the playing, because I was just tabbing stuff out and learning stuff after hours. The big thing was the visual and learning. In this song, I wouldn't call it choreography. You just have to be aware.
Yeah.
It's a pro band. At this particular moment in time, this is where Jeff does a guitar solo. He walks out to the center of the stage, get the fuck out of the way.
Right. So
you have to learn not to turn right. You have to turn left and swing around so the headstock doesn't clip him in the face.
Sure.
Because he's there. He'll be right here. If you take too long, he's right here. So you have to learn
center.
Yeah. I did backup vocals and like harmonies for Padden, Dave Padden, the guitar player singer at the time. So it was Waters on my right, me in the center, Padden on my left. And I just had to learn to get out of the way without looking like I was trying to get out of the way.
Right.
And that's what it was, you know, and I did that for.
How much rehearsal did you have before your first gig? And tell me about the first gig. Was it killer or was it terrifying or both?
I was so scared I wouldn't be able to tell you if it was bad or good. I know it was in Germany. And you know, Annihilator is huge in Germany. Annihilator is big enough in like a lot of places in Europe where, you know, it was a lot. It was overwhelming playing somebody's music that's as respected as what it was. It's not like I was going out there and if I fucked up, I was fucking up my own song. I was fucking up a 25-year-old classic metal song.
Right.
It's like, who's this rookie? You know?
And the German crowds, let's be honest, German crowds are not the most forgiving.
Yeah. You know, there and that's
Bless
what you
them.
hear. Yeah, but that's what you hear going into it. It's like, well, if you didn't say anything, I wouldn't have cared.
Right.
But now it's all I can think about. And that one note that I'm trying not to fuck up because I fucked it up in one rehearsal. You know, the 10 rehearsals that we had, I fucked it up once. And you're like, don't fuck up, don't fuck up. And then it's like when you're driving and somebody's pulled over on the side of the road and you're looking and you're
like, don't hit him, like don't hit him, don't hit him.
You don't even realize you're veering right towards them. It's like you're veering to the wrong note.
Of course.
The first 2 or 3 shows, it was a lot, to the point where like we changed the set list up. It's like we're dropping these 2 songs and we're putting these 2 songs in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because the songs weren't resonating. Jeff's been doing it long enough where he can just read a crowd. It's like, no, they don't like Stonewall, get it out. Oh, they don't like this, get it out. But there was a week of me hanging out with the band. Jeff wanted to make sure that I could, you know, hang with them and not be a piece of shit.
Sure.
And then I came home for, I think it was 2 weeks, because they went to, the reason why Russ was with them is they were going to Japan. So they went and did Japan. I think it was 5 dates, came back home, a week off, and then we were going out to Europe. So like literally out of the frying pan into the fryer, here's a 30-day run in Europe, all of October into November. And I had only at that point done like Weekend Warrior stuff. At that point, we hadn't even done like, you know, a week of shows anywhere.
Right.
That's when I got back. So I did 30 shows with Annihilator, came back the first week in November, had 3 days off, and then my band was doing a 2-week thing across the East Coast. So I was, you know, I was on.
That's a pretty exciting time.
Cloud 9, dude. Cloud 9.
Right.
So my very first tour experience was living on a bus for a month.
Right.
And it was amazing.
Great.
We were opening direct support for Iced Earth in the Ripper Owens era of Iced Earth. And you know, it was fantastic. My top 5 favorite movies, Rockstar.
Yeah, sure.
And that movie is
essentially that story.
It's that story. And I brought it with me. I had my DVD wallet because I had a little player that I brought on the bus. And I really wanted him to sign it.
He would not have been into that.
No. And I knew that. And to this day, like I've talked to him a few times in recent years about trying to do the hey, I'm going to drive down to the US in my SUV. Can I park it at your restaurant while I tour the States? You know, and he's cool with it. He's absolutely. Right. You know, he's still cool with me, which is nice. But so I didn't ask him to do that. I did not ask him to do that, but it was just, you know, it was cool. It was like, here's the guy that got the gig. And I'm going to be playing with this legendary thrash band, opening up for this other legendary band, you know, like Iced Earth. I still love Iced Earth,
What
you
would you
know,
call
regardless.
Icers? Are they power metal?
Um,
Adventure metal?
it it's hard, you know. I think a lot of the stuff can be classified like they play prog power in the USA, right? Like that prog power fest, they
Mhm.
do that. So like they're power metal, some of the earlier, even some of the newer stuff can be thrashy as hell. You know, I think they're a well-rounded metal band. I would just say
You
metal.
were about to say something, and I have a feeling that I know what you were going to say, but I
Regardless of all that,
yeah,
I still love Iced Earth albums. You
right.
know, it's seeing all that
Well,
stuff
you
go
have to
down.
separate the art from the artist, right?
If you can, I don't know if I can
You
rock a
can't
Manson shirt
always.
anymore. You
Right.
know, this is a guy that I legitimately for 10 years from the age of 14 to like 24, every day of my life went to bat. It's like, no, you don't get it. He's not a piece of shit. You're misunderstanding. He's one of the smartest guys out there. He's this, he's that. It's all art. It's, you know, you're wrong. Everyone was right.
Yeah.
Maybe. You
Maybe.
know,
I
I guess we'll
mean,
find out in this new
probably it's
HBO documentary that comes out in 2 weeks.
uh and look, it's I am not uh one of the many problems with
Yeah.
society is that we are all sitting on the jury, aren't we?
Oh, 100%.
I just I'm not a cop and
Yeah.
I'm not a juryman. I just am not into it.
Yeah.
Uh Things will shake out, but I'm not lighting a torch for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Uh if now if I caught wind of him, doing something to someone that I knew and I heard the story firsthand,
Yeah.
the torch would be the least of his worries.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
But
I get it. You know, but I haven't even before that. It's been a while. I don't think I can fit my Manson shirts anymore. They're all larges, not XLs. But you know, I've got uh, a crawl space full of T-shirts. There's like 5 Pantera shirts that I can't wear anymore, but there are also 5 Pantera shirts that I shouldn't have been wearing in the first place. I just didn't know,
right.
right? So, you know,
Uh,
I don't wear those out, and I
right.
haven't for a very long time. But how do you separate the band from the art or
Right.
the guys from the band or whatever? It's like,
All of
you
it.
know,
Right.
yeah, it's a hard sell sometimes.
Let's move on before we start getting into flat earth.
Yeah.
This is a slippery slope when we
Yeah.
with me. It's all of a sudden I'm
Aliens.
like, yeah, but what about the
Yeah.
holographic universe?
Yeah, I've
Um
seen National Treasures too.
so how long did the Annihilator gig last?
It was less than a year.
Hmm.
You know, I like to say 2007 to 2008. It looks good on
Because
paper.
it spanned across. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
absolutely. It looks very impressive, but it was, you know, my first. I celebrated my birthday, my 25th birthday. They got me a cake and a card and everything. Like I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, all these guys were like at least 10 years older than me. But you know, it was super cool. While those guys were doing stuff during the day, like I'd hang out with Jeff's kid and play basketball at the school behind his house. But that was 2007, September 2007, and then July 2008 was my last gig.
Yeah.
Um, that was, you know, a 5-week tour, a fly-in festival doing March Metal Day in Athens, Greece. That was like March 8th, I think, 2008. And then we did the Masters of Rock Festival in Czech Republic in July 2008.
I saw footage of that show. There's some good footage of that existing on YouTube.
There is a DVD.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a DVD and a live album
that's how that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. I literally just secured a copy of it about 6 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, it's very hard to track down. I didn't get a copy of it. Names redacted. Um, I got a DVD-R of it in the mail in an envelope. I don't even think it was in a jewel case. It was like in
Yeah.
a paper envelope. It's like,
Sleeve, yeah.
here's that show you did with us.
Thanks, kid.
But yeah, I don't think it was out at that time yet. It would have been cool to get an actual production copy. But it was like, hey, here's the show. I don't think there was any ill will. It was just like, here's the show before it comes out.
Yeah.
At the same time, when I posted a picture of it on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, and Padden, Dave Padden, the singer guitar player, I still keep in touch with him. He was like, "Oh, dude, you should have said something. I've got a bunch of copies here." I'm like, "Well, fuck, man."
What about my feelings?
Yeah, I've literally been looking for this thing for 12 years. And, I found a copy on eBay that wasn't $150 and was of the North American DVD code or whatever.
Right.
It's not a PAL 5 or whatever. It's like an NTSC.
You didn't have to have a fancy player.
Yeah, exactly. But it was cool. I watched it. It brought back a lot of memories. It wasn't that long ago, but it was cool to have my last show on what was one of the coolest experiences or eras of my life, to have a physical representation of that memory that I can literally just throw on a TV and watch anytime now.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Super
It's
cool.
so cool. Yeah. It was, in hindsight, I shouldn't have left. I wanted even a tenth of the success for my own band. And, I don't consider myself a monster player, by any stretch. I don't know a lot. There's like a lot that I don't know. The 5 things that I do know, I can do them really well. But I had this thing in my head. It's like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to, like, no wedding band, no cover band. I don't want to be in the tribute band. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. If I'm not playing my own music, I'm not playing. And and even to this day, if I'm not involved, I'm not playing. It's like, it's got to be, I did that band that I did the 2 records with that we ended up breaking up in 2009. In 2018, I think it was 2018. No, February 2019. No, it was 2018. It was the 9-year anniversary. It wasn't even the 10-year anniversary. It's like, let's do a show. It was for like a bachelor party for our buddies. We rented a club downtown, and we hashed out a bunch of songs. 4 songs with the first singer, 4 songs with the second singer, 1 song with everybody up on stage. We had the original drummer and the second drummer as well, and it was wicked.
Yeah.
But now that's done. Now I don't want to, I don't want to play Metallica cover tunes or Pantera cover tunes, or as I get older, it's like, man, I should just start a Pantera cover band. But I didn't want to do that for a very long time.
Be pretty fun.
It would be a lot of fun. But there's so much work that I associate with live stuff now. And in all honesty, I don't know how it's going to be after this. Like, after all this COVID stuff, I've got buddies that are booking shows downtown, and they're already canceling them. It's like, well, why did you in December book a show for February? Why'd you do that? At least wait till May. But now, Opeth is coming in April with Mastodon. Leprous is coming in April. Who's coming in March? Dream Theater's here in a couple weeks. And that's a show that's being rebooked from 2 years ago. And I'm going to all of them. Priest is going to be in Hamilton soon. Going to that. I'm back. Like I'm in. I was talking to my wife about it. It's like the last 2 years, I felt like I don't know who I am without this. Like I know who I
Right.
am, and it's this. I don't know who I am without that stuff. So I want to get fully immersed in it. I want that. You know, it's been a 2 years of recharging, and you don't know what to do with the energy. It's time to use some of that.
The last 2 years must have given you some silver lining opportunity.
Opportunities that, like, in terms of writing,
Recording, doing other production work.
it's yes, and I think I squandered some of them. You know, it not just a
I wouldn't
singular
beat myself up.
opportunity.
I think a lot of people squandered a lot of time in the last 2.5 years, you know?
Yeah. You know, I've got an EP on deck that we released one song instead of doing like 4 or 5 songs all at the same time. It's going to be one song every 3 months or something. Production work for other people this year has been good. Like the tail end of 2021, pardon me, beginning of 2022 has been all right. Last year was a write-off. Last winter, I couldn't do anything. All the schools were closed in Ontario. I've got, at that point, my daughter was 4 in junior kindergarten. And while my wife was working, I'm at home. I'd normally be recording bands and doing production, but I had I had my kid.
Right.
Schools were closed. I have to help her use a laptop to be at school online at the age of 4.
You got to
Like it
start
was,
teaching her how to run mics, you know, set up mics,
yeah,
mic drum sets.
yeah.
You get yourself a
She's
engineer assistant.
Yeah, she loves, like I've got a house kit in the studio, and she loves playing it for like 4 minutes,
Right.
and then she's done.
And she's like, oh,
It's
look
like,
over there.
yeah, on to the next squirrel.
Yeah.
um, but I couldn't take advantage of some of the opportunities, and even if I could, I don't think I would have. Like I was really last year, I was trying to play by the rules. You know, it's like everybody's in this shitstorm. Even if I wanted to bring bands in, I don't think the bands wanted to come in. Like there was a bunch of bands that just didn't rehearse. Like people that have weekly, like or not bi-weekly, but like, every 2 days they're jamming, or every 3 days they're jamming. They spend hundreds of dollars a month on the rehearsal room to maintain it so that they can have it. And they didn't jam for like 2 years. They're just starting to get back to jamming now.
Right.
So, if they're not going to be in their jam space, they're not going to be in my room here. I've got a couple, like a drum room, a mix room, and a vocal booth. You're in close quarters. I don't think anybody wanted to be that close to anybody for a while. Now I think everybody's kind of chomping at the bit, where it's like everybody's feeling the same kind of thing. They need that to rekindle that human connection, and bounce things off of people, and be able to laugh and tell jokes and have a beer or an aha. And
Pineapple.
yeah, we've also got the raspberry passion fruit, or raspberry,
Razzle dazzleberry.
yeah, raspberry acai.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm getting back into it. New guitar rig, new guitars, new toys. In the last 2 years, I've spent more money on gear, just getting things ready. And
Let's talk
it's
about your Sullys.
absolutely, I
Why
got a
not?
bunch of them. Yeah. I have a couple of the conspiracy models. Conspiracy Series 2 was my first Sully, a Raven in white unicorn sparkle.
Such a hot guitar.
It's so good. I put white pickups in it and it looks so good. I've got a custom, like a USA Revolution in it's like an aged white. I wouldn't call it what's is it Olympic?
It's so hot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all like beat up. It's checked. Sully dragged it around the shop, and Adam Nunez, he was like in absolute horror with the things that Sully was doing. Like he was literally dragging it around the shop, like banging it off things, and I'm just like, oh god, oh my god, you're gonna give that to him?
That's
not
amazing.
give it to me. I bought it, but like you're gonna send it to him that way.
Yeah.
But I've also I've purchased. I've got also a dealer relationship with Sully for Canada, so I what's the word? I not adopt. I foster guitars.
Yeah. There you
So
go.
yeah, I've had quite a few of them. I think 10 in total, and sitting on 3 of them. I've got 2 on order for
Oh, that's
myself. Like
exciting.
I've got another Revolution coming for the Conspiracy Series run 5 in the Lola red finish. It's like just a Ferrari, like race car red, monotone,
Rad.
satin neck, painted. The headstock is also Lola red. And then I've got a Shipwreck Raven coming, black limbo body, trans blue, 7-string, which I'm very stoked on.
That's a
I've
USA custom model.
no, that's
Oh,
Conspiracy Series Run 5 had 7-string Ravens.
wow.
Yeah, in Shipwreck too. A little bit of it's the black limbo stuff is hard to come by in South Korea right now. They're waiting on a shipment, so that guitar is going to be delayed another month and a half or 2 months or something like that. But I think the Red Revolution is going to be in my hands within the next 30 days.
That's exciting. We love Sully here in the Couch Riffs Champagne Room, and everywhere we go. When we say
absolutely,
we,
yeah, he's a very nice guy and does very cool things with guitars. My first time meeting Sully was. Do you have an experience with anybody or an instance that you wish you could take back, but you also wish you could stop thinking about it, but you can't? And every time you think about it, you're like, oh, why can't I get rid of this memory? I want
did
I want to take back my meeting Sully.
did you
I
did you fuck it up? Did you fart?
I didn't. It was at Namm 2017.
Mm.
Namm 2017. I went to the Ormsby booth because I'd never played a fan fret guitar, and I wanted to play like a multi-scale, right? So I went to the Ormsby booth, and Sully was there, and you know him and Perry, like they look, even though they live on other sides of the world, they look like they hang out,
Right.
like they do on the internet. I think they ran, was it either was it the Rat like website, like the fan site or something, or the Jackson fan site, Jackson
Those are
Guitar,
all
like
things that Sully knows a lot about, though.
yeah. So I think they ran a forum together or something. That's how they met. I'm gonna have to ask him though. It's something like that. But anyway, so they've got a booth together, but I didn't see like a banner or anything for Sully. So I thought he was just somebody helping at the Ormsby booth. So I was like
Well,
waiting in
that would
line.
be easy enough to assume.
Yeah, but he's not to take anything away from anybody, like like Jet or anybody that works with Ormsby, but like Sully is like he's his own thing. So to just like put him in like this other guy, I don't. I'm putting my foot in my mouth. It's like nobody's in the other guy category, but it's
Right.
like he deserves to be
Yeah.
respected as the builder. you know? And I just thought he was some guy that was helping out at the booth, and I just brushed him off. I was just like, "Hey, what's up?"
Well, how could you
And
know any differently?
I know, and I couldn't. That's why I want to take it back, because I want to meet him again the following year. Like the next year, like he might not remember, but at 2018, like I hung out at his booth a bunch. Like he remembers me coming and like trying stuff out and playing heavy metal guitars and heavy metal riffs at wearing the Run or the Naughty by Nature t-shirt.
Right.
Not cultural
he told me
appropriation.
about
It's like
this. He told me about this. He told me that he was really offended, but the one way that you can make up for it is buy more guitars.
yeah, that's what I've been doing this whole time, just to make up for it. That day I had no business being at his booth as long as I was, but I was like, "Hey man, do you want like a sandwich? Do you want a coffee?" So I just like do coffee runs for him because he couldn't leave the booth.
Right.
Like I was doing stuff for Rev amps at the time. So like, I'd be at their booth and then I'd walk around and then I'd go back to the booth and walk around. But it was like that 2018 year, anytime I wasn't at the Rev booth, I was at the Sully booth. I just wish I could take it back. He probably legitimately doesn't care.
I am certain of it.
Yeah. But I love Sully stuff. It resonates with me. I'm happy to have met him.
He might be saved in my phone as one of the people, like one of those little star saved numbers,
Yeah.
We talk. He's on
your speed dial.
That's right. He's speed dialed.
Yeah. What I did at his booth that year was that was the same way I met you, except I didn't brush you off. I just hung out at your booth all day at Cosmo Music Fest when you were doing the PRS stuff. And I was just playing like a CE 22 or a CE 24. Like it wasn't even like, it was like the entry level USA stuff, right? Like it's not entry level, but it's the economic.
Yeah.
Economic.
It's the bolt-on.
Yeah. And there's something about bolt-ons, dude, that it's aggressive. It's aggressive. Like it's angry.
Don't write them off.
No, it's like how dare you don't even glue me. You're not even going to glue me in. It's like the guitar has attitude because it doesn't get glued in.
It's funny, like most of my guitars, if they're not Tele knockoffs, they're set necks, which is weird.
Right.
Because I love a super Strat. I don't like Strats. What I really want, and I know that it's weird for Sully, I really want one of his 622s.
Absolutely.
And a Revolution. Those are the, and a Raven.
Yeah. And
they're all hot.
And yeah. Dude, the Elitas, the E-shaped guitar has better fret access than any other model, I think. I've had
there's no money up there.
yeah.
There's no money in them hills.
Zilch. But legitimately, for a 22 fret E-shaped body, you'd think that like once you got up to 17, it's like just abandon everything. It has better fret access than my Revolution. It has better fret access than the Starlings. It's unreasonable how good the fret access is.
Yeah.
On an Elita.
He's a considerate guy.
He is. He places volume knobs in the best spot. Like just get out of the way.
Are you looking around at the volume knob placements?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I wasn't shooting. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I wasn't shooting myself in the foot. But the two guitars that are on the wall right now, the volume knob is south of the side. It's south of heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it should ought to be.
Yeah.
Not like a fucking Strat where it's like you're turning yourself down if you have an aggressive right hand.
Yeah. I had a buddy drop off a Jackson soloist, like a US, what is it? SLH something, I get SL2 something. You've seen it 1,000 times. Piano black, ebony fretboard,
Yeah.
59 and a JB. It is what it is. The volume knob, like, I don't even know if you could put your guitar pick
Between the high E and it.
Yeah, it's literally like if I played that too heavy, the string is just going to go over the knob.
Maybe that's why Jeff Beck used him for a spell.
Yeah,
he got to get his his little thing going.
Yeah, yeah, it works, but I can't have them that close.
Yeah. What? You have these songs that when is the first of the? You said you called it an EP, but you said they were going to be released as singles.
Yeah, that one
how's that rolling out?
That came out. That the first one came out in September, and my buddy Bjorn from Soilwork does guest vocals on it. He did guest vocals on our 2014 album as well, and I did guest vocals on their 2019 album, which to me that's like the most. That's got to be the most monumental thing I've ever done, to be asked to do something on your top 5 favorite band on one of their albums. It's like, hey, do you want to do this? It's like, fuck yeah, I do.
Is a frog's ass watertight?
Yeah. So we put that song out in September. And the video for that I did with 100% stock footage because we couldn't get together to shoot a video. So I just, I opened an account with a stock footage company. I think it was Block Video, or I can't remember. But I put this video together, and if you watch it, it's very haunting because everything that's happening right now is kind of like in this video. Yeah, it kind of sucks. We all
with Ukraine.
We've known for a while that this is kind of like, it was going to happen eventually. Anyways, long story short, that song came out in September. The next song that's going to come out is, the song's done. It's 75% mixed. I only say that because we haven't recorded real drums for it yet. So I just need to get my drummer in here. His mom was sick. He couldn't come here. His mom was immunocompromised with underlying health issues and stuff. Unfortunately, she's since passed away. So, whenever he's available to come track the drums, he's going to come and do that. The song will be out almost instantly because it's already pretty much done. It features a keyboard solo for Mr. Derek Sherinian, which is so cool. Being a huge Dream Theater fan, Falling Into Infinity is the standout record because it doesn't sound like any of the other records. And I think it's largely to do with his writing style and the way he embellishes things and the way he plays the keyboard like a guitar, right? He really, his keyboard sound is influenced by guitar players. So, if it's Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, whatever, like that's how he does the damn thing. And he laid a monster solo. I was trying to I'm doing this solo.
Have you tried to learn it?
I haven't, but I'm going to have to.
You could always put it on a track.
I could. But I tried to figure this solo, I tried to write a solo for it and couldn't do it. I was like, I can't get a keyboard sound out of my head. Everything I'm trying to do, I'm trying to make it sound like Derek Sherinian. And I can't remember if I hit him up on Instagram. He does a lot of guest work. It's, when everything's shut down, that's how those guys are making their money.
This was the golden era of getting guests.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not ashamed to admit that, I paid for one of my favorite musicians to be on my album.
That's how they make a living.
Absolutely. I'm
I think
contributing to his musical longevity.
There's no shame in that.
No. And I also know, Zach Wilde being one of my favorite guitar players, how often he works with Derek. It's like, if he's good enough for Zach, he's good enough for our record. But he laid down the solo, and I don't want to say it's note for note, because that's not how it works. But the sound, the sonic characteristics of what he did and how he approached it was exactly what I hoped he was going to do. And it turned out monstrous. I'll send you the track, because I have a demo version with programmed drums and everything. And I want you to hear this solo, because it's literally so over the top. It's mind-blowing.
Amazing.
It's mind-blowing. And I'm very excited. So that should be coming out within the next couple months. Songs 3 and 4, who knows? The idea was that this was going to be our 4th release, and we were going to do an EP with 4 songs. Now it's going to be 4 separate songs staggered. It's still going to be, once they're all out, we might press it as like a 12-inch or a 7-inch or something. Like, we'll see. But that's where we're at with it right now. Last song was September, this one coming out soon. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we see song 3 and 4.
Yeah. I have to walk my dogs, Dave. That's time. Cool, man. I feel like I could sit and talk with you because we're rapping.
Yeah.
I feel like we could do this for fucking 5 hours.
Cool guys need to be cool together sometimes.
What about us, though?
Well, I've spent a lot of time by myself, and I think I've developed a second or third personality. It's like, hey, that Dave Sheldon, he's a good bunch of guys.
Same.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you hanging for so long.
Oh, dude, I'm happy to have been asked. I spent quite a bit of time in the last 2 days trying to get the set out. I know when we talked earlier, it was like, oh buddy, it's not like that. Like, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, but it's like, I needed just a little bit extra, because some of the guys that you have on your show, not even some, a lot of them are like the guys,
you have a nice visual what do you call it? Bouquet?
Yeah, it's all blown out. This is my what side are we? Oh, it's a reverse image right now. Huh. This is my my Zach Wilde prototype Marshall that I got from what's his face? Jeremy Wagner, who got it from Nick Bocott, who got it from Zach. And now I have it. So that's this. This is my my 800. Hot. Yeah.
That is an 800. It's in like an old JMP box. Did you?
Here's the thing. I took it apart because it had an issue when it landed. Some of the features didn't work on it, and I found out that it's a heavily modified / Appetite for Destruction head.
Oh right, I saw the picture inside the PCB.
Yeah. Yeah. So they took that chassis, put it in an old plexi style box.
Wait a minute, isn't the /AFD Silver Jubilee?
It's got a push pull on it.
Which isn't what he used on Appetite, because it didn't exist yet.
Yeah, he used an 800. So this has, or it was supposed to, the slash head has a push pull knob to actuate 2 additional gain stages on the board in the circuit path. So when it's in, it's a 2203. When you pull it, it adds those additional gain stages. I think the Jubilee is diode clipping for distortion,
right?
For the additional gain. This the Appetite for Destruction has 2 additional tubes for those gain stages, kind of like an SLX, right? 900 SLX is basically an 800. Mark III is an 800 with the diode clipping.
People like those SLXs. Have you ever had one?
I've had buddies that have one. I'm on the hunt for one. There's one on Reverb right now for 1,300 Canadian, which is a steal considering that they're going for 2,500 in the local market now.
What?
People have figured out what they
I
are.
remember when they were $550.
Yeah. I'd
That
even buy a
sucks.
Mark III right now. It is what it is.
Right.
But everything is getting so expensive on the resale market. People are figuring out, like, even a couple, 10 years ago, an 800 was $800. And now they're like
Yeah,
$3,000. I've sent you links to things that it's like,
I know.
hey, here's a half stack for
You
five
should,
grand.
right.
What's that?
It makes me mad.
Yeah.
It
But
makes me mad.
even Richie Faulkner from Priest, like, I send him links to things when he's in Toronto. Last time he was in Toronto, I took him and Andy Sneap guitar shopping. Um, and I tracked down an 800, an all white 800 stack for him. A couple months later, I found the same stack in Quebec. So I drove like 6 hours to get this thing for him, sat on it for like 8 months, and then ended up shipping it to him on a pallet. But it's like I've just got my eyes open for people all the time. Once I figure out what you're after, until you tell me to stop, I send links. So even last week, I was like, "Do you want me to stop sending you things?" He's like, "No, buddy, keep them coming."
Yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah, keep them coming.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's about, I think if it's not, I keep looking over there because I can see out a window, but it's pitch black outside.
It's
We're
9.
get,
It's 9:12.
we're getting dumped on tonight. We're supposed to get up to
Yeah,
14 or 15 inches of snow.
same. It's going to be 12 hours from midnight till 12 p.m. tomorrow.
I hate it.
It's the worst.
I hate it.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to give my dogs their last walk before I have to go out there and get icicled.
Absolutely.
Can you do me a solid? Oh,
I
you know
can.
what? Again, I know I've already thanked you and escorted you out of the room, but I'm gonna just thank you again because we just had a whole other conversation. But thank you again, really.
Dude, thank you. This makes me very happy.
I'm gonna stop our recording